All right. So anyway, so now I'm recording for real this time. And so we'll do the demonstration and I will have you all shut off your videos if you don't want to be part of that. So what we're going to talk about today is secondary gains and limiting beliefs. So what I'm trying to get you to do a little bit is go underneath. What are the emotions? What may be preventing us from really clearing all these emotions? Because whatever we're working with, if you think of it as a tabletop, right? So let's say I'm working with relationships. Okay. So one of the things that I have had to work on a lot in relationships, right, is when I was young, my dad was very, trying to make sure that I was good and proper girl, right? That I wasn't just going to be out being promiscuous when I was in junior high and high school. So he made very clear that when he was young, he had sex with a lot of girls and all he wanted is sex, right? Because that was how he was trying to portray. And he's like, guys only want you for sex. Guys will want you for sex. He didn't say only, but he said, boys will be coming after you. They're going to be trying to have sex with you. They're going to da-da-da-da, right? And he was just really trying to educate me on like, don't get fooled by some of these smooth talkers because I used to be a smooth talker. But my brain heard, and you can say it. I even said it out loud, right? You're only wanted for sex, right? Now, even though I know that's not true, it's logically not true. That's not what he was actually teaching me, right? Somewhere in my brain that got built up. Right? So that's something that I've worked with. And so if you think about that belief of, am I good enough? What am I valuable for? What is my role in life? All those things that you can think of as a table, right? And then we have all these situations underneath that hold up that table, right? So if I'm rich, that means that I'm evil. Or if I'm rich, that means I'm, whatever, right? And then we have all these situations of all these time that we see rich people doing this, right? Or if I'm poor, that means I'm X, Y, and Z. And we see all these situations because we're taught to see all these situations in life that hold up that belief, right? So when we look at our beliefs, we start knocking down those events one by one, and eventually the whole table collapses. So you don't have to work on every situation, but the bigger the situation, the farther back it is, the more insidious it is in your brain, the faster that table is going to collapse. Okay. So as we work today, we're going to do the tapping demonstration again. Please tap along for your borrowing benefits. In other words, so you will get the same benefits because your brain will attach situations in your life to whatever that is. Use the chat box to ask questions, make comments, unmute. I already said all that. I did want to ask if people were getting the emails. I cannot see you shake your head. I meant to ask that before I started blocking everybody off. But if you're not, yep.
I received, this is Ashley. I received the email that you sent with the 2 links. So thank you so much for.
You're welcome.
Doing that.
Good. Okay. Good. Yeah, because I think I sent them to you and Robin and one other person from my personal email, and the rest and then I sent from everybody from Eventbrite. So everybody should have gotten the links from the Eventbrite page as well. So if not, send that in the chat and let me know. I'm seeing the chat pop up now. Yes. Okay, perfect. All right, secondary gains. What is a secondary gain? Secondary gains, some people in homeopathy, we used to call them barriers to cure, right? What is a secondary gain? So this is something that we create in our mind that is a reason, logical or not, conscious or subconscious, that prevents us from healing. So for example, have you ever known those people that are always ill, right? They never can get better, or they keep changing illnesses, right? And sometimes it's because the only time they get the attention or the only time they feel loved is when they're sick and somebody's, how can I help you? How can I do this? Can I help you with this? Can I help you with that? Right? And that's the only way they receive love. Secondary gains can also look like someone not leaving a relationship. So maybe a relationship is abusive or destructive somehow, right? And a gain might be like, well, I would feel bad if I left my, I would feel bad if I left my, alcoholic partner, because then he might end up drunk and passed out in the streets somewhere, and then I'd feel guilty, right? So all of a sudden, my gain of staying with the alcoholic partner is that I don't have to feel bad if he goes out and destroys his life, right?
Hey,
Hey,
Dawn.
Dawn,
Yep.
sorry to
I need
interrupt. Could you
to-
please advance the slides for us?
They're not advancing?
No, they're on. We are still on slide 1, and I think you want to be on 4.
That is fascinating because they're advancing for me.
Oh.
Okay, let me stop my sharing. Let me start again.
Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, now of course, now the chats are popping up again too. I saw yes. Thank you for interrupting me. Okay, so let's start this again. So now is it popping up with secondary gains?
No.
It's not.
Nope.
This is fascinating.
We can see it
Can you
on
do
the
it
side.
manually?
Oh, there's self-talk.
All right.
1.
Can you click manually, maybe?
Okay, I am doing it manually.
Did you maybe push play?
I don't need to push play. I'm doing it. Okay, so can you see it now?
The
No.
first one?
You see the first one. Do you see the second one?
No.
Shoot.
I mean,
So
it's
if
really tiny. We'll just squint.
There it goes. It went to plan for today.
Okay, so now can you just see my whole screen? Like with all my
Yeah, I could always only just see the whole screen. It wasn't going to like the full screen of the slide.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we see all your side slides too.
Okay, but now I am on slide
Housekeeping.
slides. Okay, but now I am on slides. So if I do that, can you see, did it go back to slide 1? And can you see the whole thing?
No, it's on
the screen
housekeeping.
stays the same.
That is fascinating. Okay, this has never happened before. We're just going to do it this way then.
Okay, we're on slide 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay!
I don't know. It worked last week. Technology. All right. So secondary gains. So we've talked a little bit about this. So when I was a homeopath, there was a woman who came into me and she's like, oh my gosh, like, you know, my husband does this, my husband does that, and like he holds me back from getting this, and da 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 da. And then my kid, like I had this kid, and then I couldn't do what I wanted, I couldn't finish my schooling, and so that held me back, right? And so like her whole theme, her whole pattern was about everything that held her back. And now she was talking about her arthritis symptoms, right? And she's like, now I have this arthritis, so I can't pick things up, I can't be functional, I can't type, I can't do my job the way I want to do. And then she literally stopped herself and said, but do you think I created my arthritis to hold myself back? Right? So it's like, this is what can happen with us, is that what our internal experiences emotionally can start showing up physically. Right? And there can be patterns. So if you're always feeling a certain way about something, if you're always like, if you're like, I keep working on this or that or the other, like I keep thinking I can be successful in this, and then I try to be successful, and then, you know, then the promotion gets taken away from me, or then they end my position, or then there's a merger and I can't get what I need to get, right? Sometimes there's this unconscious block that's kind of putting us in those positions, right? Not that stuff doesn't happen in the world, but sometimes there are these weird energetic things that we start attracting. Right? So kind of like this idea of, if I don't believe I deserve money, I don't believe I deserve wealth, I might keep accidentally, you know, things might break every time I think I'm finally making it. You know, things might go wrong. My car might break down. I suddenly need this new expense, right? And not that we're creating it ourselves, right? But it's like part of what we're putting out there is this need to get back what we want. Right? A way to feel loved, a way to feel attentive, a way for us to like reaffirm that we're not good enough, or that we're not loved, or that, you know, we're never going to get better. So just play with that. It's not always true, right? But it's something that you can play with. Like, okay, if this is not getting better, how might it be serving me to be stuck here? Right? And that kind of goes with these subconscious beliefs and these limiting beliefs. So if I believe rich people are this, or poor people are like that, or women are like that, men should act like that, success looks like this, to be loved, I need to be that, then we get into these situations and they start creating emotions in us. Right? So we start being successful, and all of a sudden we start feeling guilty for our success, or we start thinking like, oh my God, are they judging me because I just bought a new car? I don't want them to. I don't want them to think I'm rich. I'm not really rich. I mean, I just needed a new car, right? And then we start justifying everything that we are, right? Or we have this really amazing partner, but since our friends like whining about how their partner is, like we start whining about our partner too. Oh yeah, mine does that too. Oh yeah, yes, yeah, you're right. All men are like that. All women. Yeah, women are so catty. Aren't women just so catty? God, it's so, oh, those Republicans, oh, those Democrats. God, can you believe those people that believe that? Right? And we start getting in this thing that works ourselves up because our belief system is conflicting with somebody else's belief system, but it's because it's become part of our identity and our value has gotten linked to our identity. So if you find yourself triggered, right? And I'm not saying you can't be like, obviously, if someone's, doing something wrong, right? There is a reason why we have anger, right? If someone's doing something wrong, you get to feel angry. You get to feel whatever you feel about it. But if it's something that's overwhelming and it's taking over your life that you can't set down ever, and that anybody that comes in and has a little bit different belief system than you creates a huge emotion in you, start looking at where is that challenging my belief about myself, my belief about who I am, about my own identity in this world. Because this is where some of our deeper stuff can happen. Right? So tying it back to loneliness, I had that slide up last week of Jung, right? When we feel like nobody understands us, nobody believes the same things that we do, it can create this really big feeling of loneliness, of being misunderstood, of depression, right? I mean, I spent Monday morning trying to find out if a friend of mine had committed suicide because he was fighting so much with his friends about politics of COVID that he finally said, I've looked at all the government websites, I've done all the math, and nobody believes me. What the hell, right? And then he was just done. He was out. He sent me a text. And this is what's happening right now, right? And we get to choose whether or not we heal ourselves for these things. Right? And if you're caretaking somebody that's having these experiences, then it's even more important that you're taking care of your own thing about this, right? Where's my level of responsibility or not, right? Like a lot of my tapping in my life has been around, it's not my responsibility to heal other people. Right? Especially as a healer, because I used to get attached. Oh, they didn't get better when I got them a massage. That's my fault. Maybe I should give it to them for free. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that, right? It's not my responsibility. And so as you do your own work, look at where are you perhaps, once again, identity, your responsibility, your belief about who you are, how are you loved, where are you lonely, where do you feel connected? What did you observe your parents do? And how did that inform how you have to act in the world and how you emotionally react to those things? Does that make sense? It's a lot. It's deep. It's deep stuff, right? But this is, sorry, I just threw all my things away. But this is really the core of EFT work, right? This is what I really help people dive into, right? And you can dive into it yourself as well. But it takes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of self-work, and it can be really challenging. So just know that. Have grace for yourself when you're doing this work. And if you need help, reach out, right? All right. So already talked about when to work with an EFT practitioner a bunch of times, but once again, we can help you uncover these secondary gains, uncover these limiting beliefs. Working through trauma, please do not work through trauma on your own. You can re-traumatize yourself. If you want to keep focused and accountable, if you need self-care and support, especially if you're supporting others. So right now, take your pen and paper, write down a couple of, sorry, all of a sudden I have the hiccups. Write down up to 3 events or situations in which you have felt lonely during the pandemic. And lonely can look like you're actually alone. Lonely can look like you're surrounded by people and you're not feeling connected. Lonely can be whatever you identify it as. But write down an event what emotion you feel, where you feel it, and the level of intensity. So write down at least one right now. And if you have time, you can write down a couple more. All right. So you can keep writing if you need to. So borrowing benefits. Remember, when we do the tapping with the demo, you're going to use the same words, the same things that I'm saying, that we're saying back and forth, right? Because our brain makes sense of the world through generalization. And so tapping with another person still allows our brain to work on our own issues. And it's a really nice, safe way to do it when we're in a group. But if you do become emotional, things we're working with, bring you to a really heightened state, just keep tapping between rounds. If you have to do stealth tapping under the table, right? Or if you just want to keep tapping through the points as I'm asking more questions or as I'm delving deeper. I also want to say that everybody goes through their events at different rates depending upon how their brain works, how specific we're being about the event, how much tapping they've done in the past, right? So also I want to remind you all that different demos are going to move at different rates. Some people clear stuff in like boom, 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 boom. They just went through 4 events and you're like, whoa, how did they do that so fast, right? And other times one event can take 3 sessions, right? So just know that, don't use, if you start using the demos as a place to judge yourself, please don't. And tap on that, okay? So remember, during the demo, no interrupting, keep yourself safe and regulated, repeating the same statements, and keep this as confidential as possible, right? I mean, I already have permission to put it up on YouTube, so it's not going to be crazy confidential, but and are there any questions before we get started? Questions or comments? All right, I'm sorry, I just shut off the thing. So if you want to take your video off, you may. I thought I was pinned, I apologize. So we're gonna pin you, Chris. And let me close the chat box as well. All right. I don't know if it's recording the chat box or not. So Chris and I talked, and as with all my demos, kind of about what we were going to start with. And the place he wanted to start was feeling loneliness during the pandemic, right? And do you want to kind of describe a little bit about it, or do you want me to just kind of give the hardcore rundown real quick?
Yeah, no, I can describe it. Can you hear me okay? I'm using my phone. My wireless has been a little finicky. Okay. Yeah, so the specific event I'm remembering is I guess it was probably last March or April, right when everything started shutting down. And I have a business that involves travel. And all of a sudden everyone started canceling all their travel plans. So that was a big bummer and kind of stressful. But then also, when all the bars and restaurants and stuff started closing, and then all of a sudden I have a broomball group. I love to play broomball. I play a couple nights a week all year round, and it's a good, it's good exercise. It's fun. It's a fun social group. And I remember coming home and I was already, kind of freaked out about everything going on and bummed out about it. And then I got an email that all our broomball stuff just got canceled. And I was just like really in a bad space. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm a single guy, and there's like almost everything that I do socially has just been taken away in a very short time, in addition to my work, which I also socialize at work. So that's gone too. And so it was kind of everything just suddenly became, I just felt super alone, like isolated.
Mhm. And you're thinking of one particular night, like that night when you came home from work?
Yeah, it was a day when I came home. Yeah, I got home and I checked my email, and I just learned that the broom ball was closed,
Okay.
in addition to all the other stuff that had just canceled and closed at the same time. So that's the specific thing.
Okay. So when you think about checking that email and learning that the broom ball had closed with everything else, what do you feel thinking about it now?
Yeah, I feel some sadness or frustration.
What's stronger right now, sadness or frustration?
I think frustration
Where do you feel it?
in my heart.
How strong from 0 to 10?
6.
All right. Even though I'm feeling frustration in my heart,
Even though I'm feeling frustration in my heart,
remembering getting home and checking my email,
getting home and remembering checking my email,
and broom ball is closed.
and broom ball is closed,
And so is everything else.
so is everything else.
Back then, I felt super alone and isolated.
Back then, I felt super alone and isolated,
But now I just feel frustrated in my heart.
and now I just feel frustrated in my heart.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
So even though I feel frustrated in my heart,
Even though I feel frustrated in my heart,
remembering checking that email
remembering checking that email,
and learning that broom ball was closed too,
and learning that broom ball was closed too,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
So even though I feel frustrated in my heart,
Even though I feel frustrated in my heart,
remembering checking my email
remembering checking my email,
and learning that broom ball was closed too.
and learning that broom ball was closed too.
Now both my social and my work was gone.
Now my social and my work was gone.
Back then, I felt super alone and isolated.
Back then, I felt super alone and isolated.
But now I feel frustrated in my heart.
Now I feel frustrated in my heart.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Right, top of the head. Frustrated in my heart.
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 Good, keep reading. Frustrated in my heart.
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 Go ahead and take a breath. Where's the level of frustration now, Chris?
About a 3.
Out of 3. Did anything else come up about that, or is it still about checking your email and learning that broom ball was closed?
I'm thinking of, I feel actually some anger comes up about it.
Okay.
I guess it's still frustration, but it's kind of anger. Yeah, I think I just get more, yeah, I guess it turns more to anger
Okay.
as I think about it now, just the situation of being isolated and having everything shut down. And I feel like it's been taken away from me,
Mm.
like a victim mentality type thought.
So the feeling now is anger.
Yes.
Where do you feel it?
Kind of in my gut.
Okay. How strong?
A 4.
Even though I'm feeling anger in my gut.
Even though I'm feeling anger in my gut,
Remembering broom ball getting closed.
remembering broom ball getting closed,
I was isolated.
and I was isolated.
It was taken away from me.
It was taken away from me.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I feel anger in my gut.
Even though I feel anger in my gut,
Remembering being isolated
remembering being isolated
because Broomball was taken away from me.
because Broomball was taken away from me.
It's a victim mentality,
It's a victim mentality,
but I deeply and completely accept myself.
but I deeply and completely accept myself.
So even though I'm feeling anger in my gut,
Even though I'm feeling anger in my gut,
remembering being isolated
remembering being isolated
when Broomball was taken away from me,
when Broomball was taken away from me,
like a victim mentality,
like a victim mentality,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Anger in my gut,
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 anger in my gut.
Where's your level of anger now?
Like a 2.
Still about being isolated?
Yeah, it feels a lot less though.
Okay. Still in your gut?
Yes.
Even though there's still anger in my gut,
Even though there's still anger in my gut,
remembering being isolated
remembering being isolated
because it was all taken away from me,
because it was all taken away from me,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I feel anger in my gut,
Even though I feel anger in my gut,
remembering being isolated
remembering being isolated
because it was all taken away from me,
because it was all taken away from me,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
But even though I feel anger in my gut,
Even though I feel anger in my gut,
remembering this all being taken away from me,
remembering all this being taken away from me,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Anger in my gut,
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 anger in my gut.
Okay. Good. Where's your level of anger now?
It actually feels a little bit more like sadness now.
Okay. Tell me about the sadness.
Yeah, it just yeah, I think the tapping helps. It feels better. It feels less bad than being angry about it. And I just feel a little, I don't even know if sad might be too strong. Almost like I just feel a little bummed out.
Okay.
Seems like the more but yeah, I would say it's like a 2 or a 3.
Okay. Where do you feel it?
I still feel it in my gut.
Okay. And still about things being taken away from you? Or has it changed?
I think it's yeah, now it feels more like just the sadness about being isolated. I'm thinking of it that way more than it being taken away. I'm thinking of more of it is what it is that I just being sad that these things are not available.
Mhm.
So it's almost like it's not anger towards that happening. It's just sadness of the reality of that's what it is or was.
Is or is it was? Is it right now?
It's not right now.
Okay.
Not the same. There's still some challenges now, but and I will say as I'm doing this, they kind of intermix with each other.
Mhm.
But thinking of the event back then, it was much more intense.
Okay. So
Yeah.
sadness or bummed out, the better term to use right now.
Let's say sadness.
All right. Even though I'm feeling sadness in my gut.
Even though I'm feeling sadness in my gut,
Remembering being isolated in March or April.
remembering being isolated in March or April,
When things became not available.
when things became not available,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I feel sadness in my gut.
Even though I feel sadness in my gut,
Remembering being isolated
remembering being isolated
as things became not available.
as things became not available,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I feel sadness in my gut.
Even though I feel sadness in my gut,
Remembering being isolated
remembering being isolated
as things became not available.
as things became not available,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Sadness in my gut.
Sadness in my gut,
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 Sadness in my gut.
sadness in my gut.
All right.
I feel like a lot better.
Okay.
Like I feel like that time I just feel a lot better.
Okay. So close your eyes and remember being isolated, finding out broom
Okay.
ball's closed, you're not able to work. Really vividly imagine, just see if anything comes up, either about that situation or about any other time, even if it doesn't seem related. What was that?
Yeah, so the one thing that comes up is just thinking back to my lifestyle many years ago. I used to always kind of like be the instigator of having parties and things like that. And I always had a whole bunch of things going on, like tons of things. And then I think about the stark contrast towards having gone from that point where I literally used to need a break from having so many things to do to having nothing going on or nothing to do. And that's kind of what popped up in my head when I was just thinking about it again now.
Okay. So thinking about that contrast,
Hmm.
always having parties, having so much to do you needed a break, to having nothing to do. What's the feeling when you think about that contrast?
Yeah, it's part of it's almost like confusion. It's almost like, how did it go from such an extreme to such an extreme? Like, yeah, like what happened?
Yeah.
And then I start thinking, am I doing something wrong? It's just like, yeah, how did this happen? How did it get to here?
So I'm curious, am I doing something wrong? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so, I know my lifestyle changed. I got much into, I'm very passionate about health and wellness, which is why I'm doing this class and I'm enjoying it. But most of the people I used to hang around were not into this kind of thing. So, I'd rather than getting drunk every weekend, I would do other things. So that big group of people I spend a lot less time with them. I still see them once in a while, but yeah, so then you just start thinking about, yeah, was this the right thing to do? Is there something wrong with me? It's like, does no one like me anymore, kind of thing. So those are all things that enter into my mind when I think of it getting to this extreme where you're totally isolated.
Was this the right thing to do? Does nobody like me anymore?
Right.
What's the feeling?
What was the question?
What's the feeling when you think about those words?
Yeah. Yeah, it's sadness, but it's also kind of confusion. It's kind of surprising.
Mm-hmm. What's surprising about it?
It just seems like, I guess it just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I wouldn't expect it.
You wouldn't expect what?
I wouldn't expect to have so many friends who I don't talk to anymore
Mm.
from changing some priorities.
Mm. How is that?
What's that?
How does that feel?
Yeah, it feels yeah, it's frustrating.
Mhm.
And I've actually worked on this before with different things. So now that we're talking about it, it's something I've spent a lot of time, helping to work through it.
Mhm.
But you feel a little bit of even feel betrayed, you feel some resentment. And some other things like that come up
Mhm.
around it.
So, Chris, what feels stronger? This idea that I wouldn't have expected to lose so many friends from changing my priorities, or this idea of being isolated? Was this the right thing to do? Does nobody like me anymore? What feels stronger? What has the most emotional charge for you right now?
I think the isolated has the stronger.
Okay. So, what's the feeling? Feeling totally isolated? Does nobody like me anymore? Was this the right thing to do? What's the feeling right now when you think about that?
Yeah, I think sadness.
How strong?
A 4.
Okay. Where do you feel it?
In my gut.
This isn't super specific, right? Normally we'd start
Right.
a little bit, but since we've got a little bit of a time constraint, we're gonna keep it a little.
Okay.
So even though there's sadness in my gut,
Even though there's sadness in my gut,
when I wonder, was this the right thing to do?
I wonder, was this the right thing to do?
Does no one like me anymore?
Does no one like me anymore?
Because I went from extreme to extreme.
Because I went from extreme to extreme.
And now I'm totally isolated.
And now I'm totally isolated.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
So even though I feel sadness in my gut,
Even though I feel sadness in my gut,
because I'm doing things other than getting drunk,
because I'm doing things other than getting drunk,
was this the right thing to do?
was this the right thing to do?
Do my friends not like me anymore?
Do my friends not like me anymore?
I'm totally isolated.
I'm totally isolated.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
So even though I feel sadness in my gut,
Even though I feel sadness in my gut,
because I wonder if this was the right thing to do,
because I wonder if this was the right thing to do
things other than getting drunk.
to do things other than getting drunk.
Do my friends not like me anymore?
Do my friends not like me anymore?
Because I'm totally isolated.
Because I'm totally isolated.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Sadness in my gut.
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 Breath.
Yeah, I feel a lot better. I was actually, when you're saying about the drunk thing, it was actually kind of funny to me.
I saw you giggling.
Yeah.
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 But this is what can happen, right? And so to kind of
Mhm.
talk about this just for the whole class, right? Did you see it? Like, if you kind of watch, like the memory comes from, okay, there's the parties, and then I needed a break, and like then these things get connected, right? Go from the extreme of having all these parties to when you stopped, right? Then
Yep.
isolation was happening even before the pandemic,
Yep.
right? And you already
Right.
said you worked on all that already. You've worked on that some already,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But see how it's still like it can still go underneath. And so this is one thing I want to also remind people is that often we have to work on a situation multiple times. And it seems like, oh my gosh, haven't I worked on this already? Right? Like there's one relationship I had in my 20s where it's like, oh, this one again. Awesome. Like, haven't I done homeopathy, and I've done like homeopathy around this, I've done EFT around this, I've talked to a therapist around this, I've done all this stuff around it, right? But there's usually some little different aspect that we're
Mhm.
trying to heal, right? So like the first time I worked with it, it was about the trauma of him axing down a door when he was drunk. The second time I worked with it, it was why did I stay there so long? The third time I worked around it, it was like, the money that it cost me. The fourth time I worked around it, right? So there's all these little different things that I had to work on in my own experience, right? That led to the same thing. And I'm like, why am I still working with this? Right? But it's all because it's different things in my life. We're bringing up different aspects of that old thing that had so many different layers to it.
Mhm.
Because I was with an alcoholic narcissist who was manic depressive and sometimes would throw shit when he got drunk. So, but I was super strong and I could handle it, I thought, right? So I had to go through all these layers of healing. And I want to just say that and share that story for everybody's benefit.
Mhm.
Because when we go back in time, we start working with these things that did have really big impacts on our brain, right? You may have to unpack it multiple times, and that's
Mhm.
okay. It doesn't mean you're doing tapping wrong. It doesn't mean anything's, bad. This is just another level. So,
Mhm. It's like the layers of the onion.
yeah, people say
Onion.
that. Yeah. I
Another
call it
layer.
more of an orange, right? We can use layers. There's also just all right. Are there any other questions? I'm going to pull back up my PowerPoint really quick here. Not that it's actually, well, I don't know if it's going to work, but anyway. So once again, reevaluate your events again. Can you see the PowerPoint? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So reevaluate your events and those current feelings around it. And I want you for your homework this week is to continue or start, if you haven't, tapping daily as much as possible. Start examining the potential belief systems that are underneath the things that you're working with, right? So what are the beliefs? What are the things you learned that you observed in your childhood? What did people tell you? What was that incident on the playground when someone took your toy and told you that you were stupid, that all of a sudden just stuck itself in your brain? And once again, come back next week with questions, stuck spaces, and success stories. Next week, we're also going to talk about something called the personal peace procedure. We'll briefly address again how to work with pain, which we talked about our first class, and working with affirmations, just as a brief little way of learning some different tools. Personal peace procedure is just about how do you lay out how to work with tapping in long term, so you can kind of address it in an organized fashion. And then I just want to remind people that I'm offering a complimentary health and healing strategy session. If you haven't worked with me before, you want to take advantage of that session. It's a 20 to 30 minute session. You can go to touchremedies.com, look under services and sign up for that. If you are working with me or have worked with me in the past, and you want to just set up a little half an hour separate from your normal session to say like, hey, like I am having trouble putting together these statements, or I'm thinking that maybe this is underneath, what do you think? You know, we can kind of do some of that exploratory work together. I also want to let you guys know I'm starting a monthly subscription. So once you've done an initial 3 sessions with me, I'm going to be offering a monthly subscription where you get 1 session a month for $95 instead of $125. So if you're looking for accountability and that kind of stuff, that is super available. And I'm looking at my chats. Dawn, will you please advance the slide? Okay, so great job, Chris. Chris, thanks for sharing.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I threw in my link for the health and healing strategy session in the chat as well. So I am going to stop recording real quick.